Welcome to Integrity and Joy. I'm Steve Walker. This is episode 20 of Integrity and Joy, the season finale. Even coaches get sick. Lessons in resilience and rest. So welcome to Integrity and Joy. I am Steve Walker, former U.S. diplomat, activist, educator, and now life coach, meditation teacher, and podcaster. Welcome. This is episode 20, a long time in the making. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute. If you're new to the podcast, thanks for tuning in. If you have been listening all along, thank you. In all cases, I hope you're following the podcast. If not, please do so today and leave a rating and a review. We'd love to get as many 5-star ratings as possible. It gets the podcast in front of more people, and it will take you, 2 seconds to do it. So please do it before you leave today. So this is a long time in the making. If you've been watching or listening for a while, right? This is actually the first time that we're intentionally recording video. So we're figuring out if we want to do it for the second season. But anyways, if you've been listening all along or for a while, you'll know that every week, Tuesday morning early, a new episode would come out. And the first 19 went just like that, so easy. And I was really looking forward to episode 20 because it was going to be the last one of season 1. So I was kind of excited about that. And there's data that says that most people don't make it to episode 20, that most podcasters quit before then. So I was like, well, then I don't think I'll have any problem making it to 20. Well, I had no problem making it to 19. And then the universe hit the pause button on my life. I got very sick. I spent a couple of weeks in the hospital, but I've been battling something for 2.5 months, at least. Almost 3 months. And it's been a heck of a wake-up call and a lot of life lessons that have either been learned or relearned or affirmed over the last couple of months. And I thought I would share that with you. I thought that today I would share what's been happening and my reflections on it, because I think it could help somebody, it could resonate with somebody, and I think it's about a lot of the stuff that we talk about in terms of how to live a good life and how to deal with adversity and how to be fully present and control what you can control and let go of the rest. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. In advance, if anything resonates with you, I hope you'll reach out and have a conversation, maybe about how one-to-one coaching could maybe help you, or an integrity circle, or at least make sure you're following me on social media at Integrity and Joy. But ideally, if something resonates in this or any episode, and you'd like to talk about how life coaching might be of help to you, go to integrityandjoy.com and you'll get more information. The first call is always free, so there's no risk to it. Anyway, so early mid-April, feeling good. Spring's here. Looking forward to the summer. Went to a concert. Got home. And as I started to get out of the car, I couldn't move because I had this excruciatingly sharp pain in my upper middle back, right between the shoulder blades, just off of the spine. And it took me by surprise. It took my breath away. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I did nothing to cause it, I thought. And eventually I made it inside and couldn't really sleep that night. Didn't really eat the next day. Really just in a lot of pain, very uncomfortable. And it was a Saturday, so my primary care wasn't available, obviously. So I went to the ER that evening. And the ER was packed, not enough space as per usual. So I'm on a gurney in the hallway, which doesn't feel good, but is what it is. But the staff, was really busy and overworked, but really wonderful. A couple of doctors, a couple of nurses were really, not just caring and attentive and, really intelligent, but compassionate, like really caring and compassionate. It really kind of struck me, just how much so. And they did tests. They did a CAT scan and an X-ray looking for like life-threatening things like blood clots and aneurysms. And fortunately, that all came back negative. And then they said, well, at the end of the night, they're like, well, it's probably muscular. So here's some painkiller and muscle relaxant for a couple of days, and go see your primary care physician, in 2 or 3 days. Okay. Rest of the weekend, more of the same. I mean, the medication, took the edge off a little bit at times, but I was still pretty miserable and no appetite. And within 3 or 4 days, I had lost 7 pounds. So that's a lot in a short amount of time. And couldn't see my primary care physician because, as most of you know, we have a shortage of primary care physicians, not only in this area, which is incredible, right? I'm in the Boston area. I'm looking at the city right now. That's how close I am. And so you get all these medical schools, all these tremendous, facilities, hospitals, whatever. Not enough. It took me, when I moved here 2 years ago, it took me almost a year to get a primary care physician because they were all booked up and had waiting lists. So I couldn't see my primary care, but someone else in the practice was available, so I saw them. They ordered a couple more tests to rule out other serious stuff, and then prescribed physical therapy. So I started going to physical therapy. I went a few times. In the moment it might have helped just a little bit, but quickly wore off, and it really didn't help. And so I then started to feel worse and started to have some other symptoms. And I called up the primary care physician's office again and said, hey, I've got a follow-up visit in a couple of weeks, but I really need to see somebody now. I feel pretty miserable. And they're like, well, we could move you up a week, but nothing before then. And I said, well, but this is really bad. And they said, well, then go to the ER. And I thought, well, that seems like an unsatisfactory answer, but it is what it is. So it was a Friday, late in the day, and I went to the ER. And again, on a gurney in the hallway. But fortunately, I was assigned to a physician's assistant who said, look, you were here 3 weeks ago with this back pain, and you've got a couple other things going on now, but no one's been able to figure out what's going on with your back pain. We're going to figure this out tonight. I thought, oh, thank goodness somebody's finally going to give me the right help. And so she wanted to order an MRI of my whole spine, which I was very happy about. And then her boss came by 15, 20 minutes later and said, no, we're not going to do that. Because if they found something like a herniated disc or something, that's a tough part of the spine to get to surgically. So they're probably not going to operate. So what's the point? Well, I think the physician's assistant went back to him and said, hey, this guy needs some answers, and an MRI might show something. And it's up to the neurosurgeons to decide whether to operate or not, but it might show something else other than a disc, and let's get this done. So he came back, and to his credit, he said, okay, sure, change my mind, I'm persuaded, let's do it. So they did an MRI. That showed something was going on. They did a couple of follow-up MRIs to get a better look at 2 different parts of my spine, and admitted me to the hospital. And in the morning, first thing in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, a neurosurgeon comes by with my MRI and says, you have an infection in your spinal cord and on your spine, and you have an abscess next to your spinal cord that's infected. What? That's a thing? You can get a infection in your spinal cord and in your spine? He's like, yeah. I said, oh my God. How does that happen? He said, well, who knows? He said, could have been just a cut or a bug bite or something like that you didn't notice that got infected. And, the organism gets in, the bacteria gets in, and ends up deciding to camp out in your spine. It was also my blood, which was very worrisome because of sepsis. and it can spread to other organs and other parts of your body. And but I felt remarkably good considering the pain and considering some of the other symptoms. And the neurosurgeon even said something about it. You're like, wow, he says, this is a little bizarre. He said, people with this MRI looking this bad don't look like you do. Like, you look pretty good. He said, it's a testament to how well you've been taking care of yourself, I guess. Though within 36 hours, I was in pretty bad shape. I was even hallucinating a bit and ended up sleeping for about 48 hours. Just my body was using all its energy. That's why I'd lost so much weight. By this point, I'd lost 25 pounds in 3 weeks. And when I woke up, I felt like a 96-year-old man. I had no energy. I had to lie down if I did the simplest thing. I couldn't walk, more than a room or two away. My body just needed everything it could to fight this thing. And so they put me on really strong antibiotics. And the first week, they were able to get the infection out of my blood, which was a relief. And then by the end of the second week, I was in good enough shape that they could switch me to an antibiotic that I could administer from home with a PICC line. So they put a catheter basically in through my arm all the way to my heart, and then I could, with an IV port at the end of it, and I could inject myself several times a day with antibiotics, still very strong antibiotics, and that meant that they could send me home after 2 weeks, which was a relief. But it was really, it was. I think looking back, I was not quite as aware of how serious it was. The infectious disease doctor last week said to me 4 times, "We were really worried about you when you were in the hospital." So I was very sick, I guess, and which I kind of knew, but I don't think fully appreciated. And partly also, so this is where some of the life lessons come in. First of all, obviously, I always preach, everything's temporary. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Well, in this case, yeah, my life went on hold for a couple of months, basically, because everything's temporary. And the universe, threw me a curveball, and I had no control over that, right? So I had to accept that. I had to accept that everything is temporary, and right now, this is what's in front of me. But also, hopefully, that with good health care, and I'm fortunate enough to live near a good hospital, a lot of good hospitals, actually, and to have good insurance. Even then, it's expensive, but I can handle that. So I'm fortunate, like many people aren't. And unfortunately, it looks like even fewer people are going to have access to any kind of, affordable health care in the very, near future because of this bill that currently is being voted on in the House this week. So I'm fortunate, but at the same time, very much aware of okay, everything's temporary, but hopefully this illness is temporary. All I need to do right now is focus on this moment and getting healthy and doing whatever I need to do to help my body heal itself and to work with these wonderful professionals. And, virtually every doctor and nurse, every person in the MRI unit, they were wonderful. I mean, just really caring, generous souls. So I'm very appreciative to them. But it also forced me to, I think, focus on something else I preach a lot about, really shrinking our circle of concern, the stuff that we worry about and think about and want to control or influence, but really a lot of it we don't. And then grow the circle of control, the stuff that we actually can control and influence. And in this case, most stuff I had to let go of and surrender. And I interestingly enough, surrender was like my word of the winter. I was really focusing and meditating a lot on that, and surrendering what I couldn't control. And this was a moment where I had to do that, where I had to really focus on what I could control, very little. Getting rest, sleeping, drinking enough fluids. Working well with the hospital staff. That was about it. and and so that was huge. That was a big thing, and I adapted to it pretty quickly because, for a lot of my life, I've had a pretty good mindfulness practice, meditation. I'm a life coach and have been doing this kind of work for a long time, and so, it's ingrained to some extent. It's also that I'm really good in a crisis. If you're having a crisis, I'm the person you want in the foxhole with you. I'm the life coach you want to help you navigate the difficult times in life. Because I had a lot of difficult times and crises growing up and as an adult early on, some life or death situations in a couple of cases, and learned not to panic, to be present, to be mindful, control what I can control, let go of the rest, just take one step in front of the other, baby steps in the direction you need to go. That's it. And so I'm really good in those situations. And so it all kind of clicked together pretty quickly. Not that I didn't have my moments of worrying, about the infection spreading or it getting even more serious, but really was pretty good about staying in the moment. And so I'm very grateful for my mindfulness practice, my meditation, and a lot of the work I do with clients because it all, I had to put it into practice and it worked pretty well. So lessons for all of us, right? In addition, particularly growing up and early in my adulthood, I was not really good at asking for and receiving help. I was brought up, my dad in particular was a, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and suck it up kind of guy, would send me to school sick. And then the school would send me home because I was throwing up. But I've learned throughout my adulthood more and more to be willing and able to ask for and receive help. I still struggle with it at times, for sure. But this was a great example of that, where I really had to, ask for and receive a lot of help constantly. And so I'm grateful I was able to do that. It was also a great reminder of just taking care of and listening to our bodies in general. Again, I fared better probably because of taking pretty good care of myself in general. I have a chocolate problem, but generally I eat pretty well, and I go to yoga 3 times a week, and I'm either walking 3 miles or 5 miles or on the Peloton every day, and so that helped me in advance, and then really had to be hyper focused on listening to my body in the hospital, both in terms of being able to report what I was actually feeling and experiencing, as well as how far I could push myself a little bit more every day so that I could build my strength, get healthier, but also respecting my body's need to heal and to use whatever energy was available, and take naps and rest and not push myself too hard. So that was great. I mean, in some ways, it really focuses you, and it's a good life lesson that I'm got a new water bottle. My daughter nudged me so that I would drink more water. So there we go, and that's made a difference. And so really important reminders about listening to our body and the connection between the mind body. Connection. I did a lot of visualization. Visualizing myself, my body healing itself. I don't know whether that helped physically. I think it probably did, right? Because our brain does respond to that stuff. Visualization is indistinguishable from reality in terms of our brains. So it probably did help to some extent, but it certainly helped in terms of my focus and my mood and, giving me something to feel like I was contributing in some way to my healing. And then I think also, having a prolonged crisis in which I was limited for a long time in terms of what I could do. Because even after I got home, still on the antibiotics, the IV antibiotics. I'm still on, antibiotics. I'm taking oral antibiotics for another 5 weeks. So I'll have had 12 weeks of antibiotics total, which is incredible, right? I mean, but we want to get this under control. It can still come back within a year or so, which is sobering. But obviously we would catch it faster, and it wouldn't get as bad. But really, was very limited when I got home for a couple of weeks in terms of what I could do. So with life on hold like that for a while, there's time to sort of reflect and, think about my priorities and how I spend my time, and, am I really, fulfilling my purpose? How strong a sense of purpose do I have? And so it's helped me, make some adjustments that I'm still figuring out in some cases, but in terms of how I spend my time and how I organize my time, and some of the things with my business that I was sort of exploring or tinkering with, and I'm going to let go and really focus on the core parts of my business, which are, one-to-one coaching, launching integrity circles, which are these small groups of 5 to 8 people who are committed to each other's personal and professional growth. Really wonderful, especially during this time of feeling more isolated and lonely for people. And this podcast, building community. I mean, helping individuals and building community. I think that's like what my purpose is right now. So if something's directly related to that, great. And if it's not, forget it. And I'm trying to, build this sense of community, for people, because we all need it. And particularly now in our society, we need it. We need to feel more connected to each other, caring towards each other, look out for each other more. Spread more love and compassion and empathy. So that's what I'm about. So I'm going to focus on that, and try and let go of the rest of it. So even in a storm like I was experiencing, there's a silver lining to the dark clouds. And again, most of our growth and insights into ourselves comes during and out of crises, right? Big changes that we didn't anticipate, that kind of make us uncomfortable or scared or whatever. But now all of a sudden we're more open to change. We're more open to looking at ourselves honestly and accurately. And so it's an opportunity as well. And so I'm trying to seize the opportunity to reflect and make adjustments in my life, because as I learned again, everything is temporary, including life. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know if we're promised tomorrow or not. We're not. So, so I think it's important to remind ourselves that life is precious and it's limited, and we don't know how limited it is. So let's focus on the things that really matter, and let's focus on more love and more compassion for ourselves and each other. And that's what I'm going to be about. Even more so than before, even though that was my primary focus before. But now that's it. That's my litmus test. So anyway, so that was in some ways a blessing. And again, I think lessons learned in terms of the healthcare system. I think a lot of it is like reminders that there is a bit of scarcity, right? It's a limited commodity, and we need to figure out how to fix the primary care physician problem. That scarcity and access to it. We obviously need to fix the whole health insurance fiasco. It got a little bit better because of Obamacare, and now we're seeing that reversed in some ways, with Medicaid being cut to some extent. And Medicare is going to have a financial crisis, 10 years from now or so. So we need to fix this stuff. We need to make sure that people have access to healthcare. It's ludicrous. Again, there were still challenges and expenses in my situation, and I'm pretty fortunate, right? It's not like I'm so wealthy that I can afford premium healthcare all the time immediately, but I'm pretty fortunate for middle class, and yet still it doesn't work exactly the way you want it to work, and then hospital space and availability, and I'm lucky. They might have been overcrowded, but, and put me in this like one person room with another person, and they had most of the room, and I had this little like end of it by the window, right, cramped in. But still, there are people maybe even listening and watching who, they don't have a hospital within a couple hours, right? For rural areas, like that's a real problem. And there are more rural hospitals that might be closing because of these Medicaid cuts. So, that's a huge problem that we need to address, right? Just basic access to healthcare. And then I think, one thing that was really beneficial to me, to any of you healthcare providers out there, the extent to which doctors and nurses were able to be very kind of transparent in their thinking and help me understand like what was going on and what they were doing and why and have it be a little bit of a conversation in that case. Didn't take a lot of time, but it meant a lot, and it helped me. And it helped me focus on what I needed to focus on in terms of healing. So that was tremendous, and giving them feedback, what was working, what was not, how I was feeling in response to certain types of treatment, and I think that was really helpful too. And being an advocate for myself, we need ourselves or a relative or a friend with a healthcare proxy for us who feels up to it and capable to be an advocate for us. But we need to manage our own care to some extent. We need to advocate and ask good questions. And I always ask the experts at the end, what questions should I be asking that I didn't ask, or what would you ask in this situation? And they appreciated that. I think that was a big lesson. You're part of a team, and you gotta participate, not just sit there and listen and not ask questions or give feedback. Anyway, so I hope that's helpful. I mean, I hope it resonates. Probably a lot of you would resonate with. I hope you leave in the comments or the reviews, your experiences or questions that it raises for you, or things that were helpful for you. For all of us and our loved ones, there are going to be these healthcare crises, health crises throughout our lives, and I think we've got to figure out how to do better as a society, but we also need to make sure we're taking care of ourselves and taking care of our loved ones, and understanding how to give ourselves and our loved ones the best chances to heal and have healthy, happy, long, loving lives, right? That's the goal in the end. So thank you for listening, for being here, for letting me share not just the highs, but the lows of what's going on in my life and the lessons learned. If this season has helped you or inspired you or made you feel seen or validated, I'd love for you to leave a review, share the show with a friend or a loved one, and drop me a note on Instagram, or go to our website, integrityandjoy.com, and let me know what resonated with you. And if you have any suggestions for season 2, please don't hesitate to let us know. And if you'd like to explore how life coaching or an integrity circle or our community on Aura could be of help to you in your personal or professional journey, sign up for a discovery call through our website, and it's free, and we can have a nice conversation about how I could be of help. I hope you have a great summer, and we look forward to continuing the conversation towards the end of the summer. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. If today's episode resonated with you, imagine what we could accomplish together in a one-to-one coaching session. Visit integrityandjoy.com to learn more and book your free consultation. Let's create the life you've been striving for.